Hello everyone, I am Nishu and I am going to discuss the topic that how plants respire in chapter number 6, life process. Now, like every living organisms, human beings, animals, microorganisms, plants do need to respire. We have all different living organisms have their own different respiratory system through which they respire, through which they breathe. But here in case of plants, simple gaseous exchange occurs. And how this occurs here, how this process is completed in case of plants. So for that also, in plants various parts are available, various parts occurs. So what are those parts? Those parts are stomata, with the name you are familiar, lenticels and general surface of roots. So these are the different parts through which your plants exchange their gases. What is exchange of gases? Exchange of gases means taking oxygen from the atmosphere inside the plant body during the process of respiration and exhaling out, releasing out carbon dioxide from the plant body to the outside atmosphere. This is called as gaseous exchange in case of respiration in case of plants. So again I will repeat the parts which will be helping the plant to respire, that is your stomata, lenticels and general surface of roots. Now let us study that how respiration or gaseous exchange occurs through stomata in case of plants. Here you can see that I have drawn the diagram of stomata on the board. Now in this diagram, these two bean-shaped structures you can see. These two bean-shaped structures are called as guard cells. Now these guard cells are having walls. This is the outer wall of the guard cell and this is the inner wall of the guard cell. This outer wall, you can see I have written, it is thin and the inner wall is thick. There is a reason behind this. To support the respiration process and photosynthesis process with a very certified, with a very solid reason, the inner wall is thick because continuously this wall has to open and close. So through this the gaseous exchange can take place. So these are two guard cells. This is the outer part which is outer wall which is thin in shape and the inner wall which is thick in shape. Now these two guard cells are surrounded by epidermal cells. These are the epidermal cells which are surrounding the guard cells from outside, which are protecting the guard cells from the outside. Now you can see that in between these two guard cells I have drawn a small opening. This small opening is called as stoma. This is your stoma. Stoma is the opening. Stoma is a small door-like structures through which the gas will enter inside and the gas is going to come outside. So this is a door, this is an opening, this is a gate, whatever you say, it's over there. So it is stoma. So in the structure of stomata, you can see that two guard cells are here. These two guard cells are protected by epidermal cells. Then the small opening in between is here, which is called as stoma. And the inner wall of stomata is thick and the outer wall of stomata is thin. Guard cell is thin. Now, the main purpose of explaining this structure was to explain that how respiration is taking place in case of plants, how the gaseous exchange is taking place in case of plants, how this structure is helping in gaseous exchange. Now, respiration through stomata was our topic, was our heading which we have to understand. So, what is stomata? Stomata is a small opening through which your gaseous exchange will take place. Now, where do the stomata occurs or where it is present? This stomata is present on the surface of the leaves. Stomata is present on the upper surface as well as on the lower surface. So, it is present on both the surface of the leaves. So, Along with stomata, along with the leaves, the stomata is also present in the young stem of the plant. You all know that plant is having a stem. So when the stem is young, it is greenish in color. So that there also your stomata is present. But mainly the stomata is present on the surfaces of the leaves, on both the surface of the leaves. So what is stomata? Stomata is a small opening which is present on the surface of the leaf through which exchange of gases can be taking place. Now, we are moving towards the process that how gaseous exchange occurs over here. Now, these are the two guard cells and this is an opening which is your stoma. Atmospheric oxygen, the oxygen which is present in the atmosphere. Now suppose respiration process is going on and your exchange of gas is going to take place. So during respiration the oxygen needs to enter inside the plant cell and CO2 needs to release out into the atmosphere. So this is the door, stoma, through which the atmospheric oxygen will enter inside. So what happens? The guard cells, it opens, it enlarges in shape, guard cells spreads like this, and with the spreading of the guard cells, this stoma gets opened when guard cell remains closed. But when the guard cell enlarges in size, when the guard cell will open, the stoma get exposed, and due to the exposed of the stoma, the oxygen which is present around in the atmosphere, that oxygen will enter inside the plant cell through the stomata by the process of diffusion. So what is diffusion here? This is second important term, that what is diffusion. Diffusion, you all know that it is a process where solid, liquid and gases can transport from the region of higher concentration to the region of lower concentration. Now what is the region of higher concentration and region of lower concentration? Now in case of respiration, oxygen is present in abundance in the atmosphere and the need of oxygen is more inside the cells of the plant. So from the region of higher concentration, that means where the oxygen is in abundant amount in the atmosphere and inside the cells the availability of oxygen is very less. So from the region of higher concentration to the region of lower concentration. So from the atmosphere where oxygen is in large amount will move to the region where the oxygen is in less amount. So by the diffusion process, your oxygen from the atmosphere will enter through the stoma inside the cells of the plant where your availability of oxygen is very less. This process is called as diffusion. So what happens through the stomata? Atmospheric oxygen is entering inside by the diffusion process inside the cells of the leaf. Now what will happen inside the leaf? Now inside the leaf of the plant, your oxidation process will take place. During respiration, I have discussed before that respiration, what is respiration? It is a process of oxidation of glucose, breakdown of glucose, and as an end product, what is produced? Carbon dioxide and water is produced. The same process is going to repeat here in case of plant's leaf also. So what happens when by the diffusion process atmospheric oxygen is entering inside the cells of the leaf. Now inside the cells oxidation process will take place. Now due to oxidation the glucose present inside the cells of the leaf will burn, will break down, and because of the breaking down of glucose your carbon dioxide and water will be produced. So inside the cells water and carbon dioxide is produced as a result of oxidation process. This is not a simple one-step process. It is not that simply the oxygen is entering inside by the diffusion through stomata. It is reaching to the cells of the leaf and inside the cells the glucose is breaking down and carbon dioxide and water is produced. It is not just a simple that process. It is a series of chemical reaction takes place to complete this whole process, to convert glucose into carbon dioxide and water. There are various numbers of chemical steps are taking place. A series of chemical reactions are taking place, and after passing through those chemical reactions, ultimately the oxygen from the atmosphere inside the cells of the leaf are broken down into carbon dioxide and water. Now, this carbon dioxide and water is a waste product. Plant cells do not need it. It has to be eliminated out. It has to be released out. So, what will happen? Now again, by the diffusion process. Now, what is taking place? Now, inside the cells of the leaf, carbon dioxide and water is in excess. And outside in the atmosphere, the availability of CO2 is less. So, from the region of higher concentration to the region of lower concentration, the CO2 gas will be moving. So, the CO2 from the cells of the leaf passing through the stomata, through stoma, the CO2 will be released out into the atmosphere. So, in this way, the respiration in plants is completed with the help of stomata. I hope you have understood that through the stomata, your oxygen from the atmosphere enters inside the plant cells by diffusion process, where inside the cells oxidation of glucose takes place, and after this oxidation, as a result, carbon dioxide and water is produced, and this carbon dioxide and water is eliminated out as a waste product and into the through the stomata, through the stoma, again by the diffusion process, CO2 is released into the atmosphere. Now we are going to study that how gaseous exchange takes place with the help of lenticels. Now first, it is very important to know that what is lenticel. Lenticels are the small openings which are present on the stem, woody stem or bark. I told you that during stomata, when I was explaining stomata, I told you all that if the stem is young, if the plant is young, then in the young plant, the stem is green in color. And in the greenish color, stomata is present, and in those cases, your respiration or gaseous exchange occurs through stomata. But slowly, gradually, when the stem turns into woody, and or we can say that when the bark of the tree is prepared, then these small pores gets arised. The small pores are formed on the stem. These small pores which are present on the stem are called as lenticel. These lenticels serves the same function which was done by stomata. Just like stomata, lenticels are also responsible for gaseous exchange. Here also by the diffusion process, your atmospheric oxygen enters through the lenticel in the internal part of the cells. Now, inside the cells of the stem, oxidation will take place, glucose will break down, and your CO2 and water will be produced. The same process is going to repeat here in the cells of the stem, but only the parts have changed. In case of old woody stem, in case of bark, lenticels are the small opening which are responsible for the exchange of gases. So the atmospheric oxygen enters through lenticels inside the stem in the cells. Oxidation occurs, glucose gets burned, glucose is broken down, and carbon dioxide and water is produced. That carbon dioxide and water from the cells comes out into the atmosphere through the lenticels. So, your lenticels is also serving the same function of exchange of gases. Now, After completing stomata and lenticel, we are on the last part of the respiration, that how in case of plants through roots exchange of gases is taking place. You can see that I have drawn a diagram over here, and this is a simple root. I have drawn a simple root, a taproot structure. Now in this taproot structure, you can see these are very fine hair-like structures, and these fine hair-like structures are called as root hair. These root hair is a unicellular structure, single cell structure. And these are the cells of the root which are present. Now this root is under the soil. These are all soil particles I have drawn. Now under the soil, during ploughing or during tilling, I hope you know that what is the meaning of ploughing and tilling. When farmers during agriculture, they plough the fields, agricultural fields, or they till, animals, they till the soil. Like earthworm and all, they crawl under the soil and they till. Now what happens due to that process? All the soil particles which are present under the soil, they all get free from each other. They all get separated from each other. And due to that separation, what happens? The oxygen easily from the atmosphere is entering inside the soil. So availability of oxygen is fulfilled because of ploughing and tilling. So oxygen from the atmosphere easily can diffuse inside from the atmosphere inside the soil, under the ground, in between the soil particles. Now this oxygen from the soil is pulled up by the diffusion process by a unicellular structure called as root hair. So you can see this oxygen which is present under the ground, and from in between the soil particle, this oxygen is diffused inside by the root hair. Now this oxygen passing through root hair enters inside the cells of the root. Same process. Same thing will repeat here again, as you have studied as we have discussed in stomata and lenticels. From the atmosphere, this is atmosphere for the roots. Now they are not going to get into the open atmosphere. Oxygen they are going to avail from the soil. So oxygen from the soil, from its own atmosphere, is pulled up, is diffused by the root hair, and this oxygen is entering inside the cell. Now inside the cell of a root, oxidation process will take place, glucose will burn, carbon dioxide and water will be produced. Again by the same manner, this CO2 which is produced inside the cells of the root, this CO2 will diffuse out by the root hair into the soil back. So from the soil particle, with the help of root hair, oxygen was diffusing inside from the region of higher concentration to the region of lower concentration. Now inside the cells, the oxygen is oxidizing glucose, and as a result, carbon dioxide and water is produced. Now that carbon dioxide and water in form of vapor, they are released through the unicellular root hair-like structures into the soil back. In case of old roots, sometimes these unicellular hair-like structures are not present, and their small pores are formed, and this gaseous exchange occurs through those pores. Now what happens? Here a new term I am going to discuss. Till yet I hope you have understood that how the respiration, how the gaseous exchange is occurring or taking place in case of plants with the help of stomata, lenticels and root surfaces. But now the term which I am going to explain, that is very important. If I take example of stomata, I am going back to it. If I take example of stomata, now stomata is responsible for respiration. Stomata is also responsible for photosynthesis process. But in both the processes, exchange of gases are different. In case of respiration, just now I have told that oxygen from atmosphere is entering inside the cells of the leaf, and CO2 after the oxidation from the cells of leaf is thrown out into the atmosphere. This was respiration. But in case of photosynthesis, children, you know that process of photosynthesis require carbon dioxide. So carbon dioxide from the atmosphere is taken inside the cells of the leaf, where your oxygen is produced as a waste product, and that oxygen is thrown out into the atmosphere. It is a balance. It is a type of ecological balance which is gifted in the nature by the God itself, by the creator itself, that the nature can balance itself. Because now if we take example of human being, animals, microorganisms, many different types of organisms are there. I'll not take all the examples of microorganisms, but mainly I'll take examples of your human beings and animals. We all need oxygen to survive. We respire, we breathe oxygen inside. But plants, during photosynthesis process, they are taking carbon dioxide. It's a very compensating process. Now listen what is happening. Now during respiration process, oxygen is taken inside and carbon dioxide is thrown out in case of plants. In case of human beings or animals, during respiration, same process, oxygen is taken in and CO2 is thrown out. So CO2 during respiration in case of plants is thrown out, and in case of animals also CO2 is thrown out. The percentage of CO2 now is more in the atmosphere. But in case of plants, this CO2 present in the atmosphere during photosynthesis process is taken inside through the stomata. Now this carbon dioxide from the atmosphere is taken back by the plants, and this CO2 inside the plant body is utilized to make glucose, as a result of which oxygen is produced, and this oxygen is thrown out into the atmosphere. This oxygen is inhaled by the other living organisms. So this is called as, this type of eco-balancing in the nature is called as compensation point. The amount of CO2 released by the organisms into the atmosphere, the same time the CO2 is inhaled. The CO2 is taken by the plants during photosynthesis process to make their food, to keep themselves alive. So this balancing nature is called as compensation point. Hope the topic which I have explained today is clear, and during this session whatever has been explained is very clearly understood by you all.